Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast and iTunes #1 kids and family podcast. We are so very grateful that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids podcast family. Thank you so very, very much. We have a wonderful guest for you today. He is the author of the fabulous Feats of Mr. B. His name is Bruce Weinberg. Before we introduce you to the creator of Mr. B, I'd like to introduce you to a brand new school show that I am presenting under the Reading with Your Kids banner. It's called Reading Matters. Reading Matters. Isn't it so important to our kids? To us, reading really does matter. And in this new, totally interactive school assembly, I use magic, storytelling, and illusions to teach kids the benefits of reading, especially reading aloud, to themselves and to others. And also I teach them the benefits to visualize the text they are reading. Now, numerous studies have shown that these strategies improve emotional intelligence, increase empathy, sharpen focus, increase vocabulary, and improve comprehension. One of the things I do in the show is I challenge students to read aloud with somebody else at least 20 minutes a day. Hopefully, that's you. That's the person they're going to want to choose to read with. Maybe you're busy, so maybe they read with a sibling, or maybe they read to the dog or the cat. It really does help. And the show is a lot of fun. Love to tell you all about it, and I'd love you to tell the folks at your kid's school all about it. Your principal, your librarian, the guidance counselor. You can find out all about it at our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and you can go to the Reading Matters page on that website, readingwithyourkids.com. The name of the new show is Reading Matters. Speaking of the school librarian, I bet you never think of yourself as the librarian of your family's library, but you really are. You are a person who makes so many decisions as to what goes into your family's library, and that is really, really important. Well, I think a book that you should consider adding to your family's library is our latest Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read. It's called My Community, and it is written by Raven Howell. My Community. Greet the morning. Hello, son. Today I'm meeting everyone. It's all about celebrating diversity. This book is all about celebrating your community, celebrating all the cultures, all the people that make up your wonderful community, celebrating the fact that you can all come together with these different cultures, different ideas, different points of view, different talents to make the world a wonderful place. I really think it's a book you want to consider adding to your family's library. It's our latest Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, Raven Howell's My Community. Congratulations, Raven. Great job. Joining us on the line right now from Southern Florida, Cooper City in Florida to be exact, our guest is a first-time author, a long-time teacher. Please welcome to the show the author of the fabulous Feats of Mr. B, Bruce Weinberg. Bruce, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you here, a veteran teacher. My wife has been a teacher in the Boston Public School systems for 30 years. This is her 30th year, so I have deep and unabiding respect for any teacher who has put in the kind of years that she and you both have.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a challenge, and I decided that after 35 years, it was time to move on.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. We absolutely want to talk about, about the fabulous feats of Mr. B. But just, I just take a minute. How did teaching change for you? I don't know if people kind of understand that the profession of teaching has really changed a lot. What were the biggest changes you noticed in your 35 years in the classroom?
What I noticed specifically was that it seemed like there were more and more challenges that were placed upon us. Mm-hmm. what I was finding towards the end, unfortunately, was not as much respect for the profession, which kind of was frustrating a little bit for me as well. And then in Florida, there was such a high demand on testing for the test. I mean, teaching for the test, that it almost got to the point where it kind of went overboard. But I was teaching elective because I was teaching theater. But we still had to spend time, teaching for the test. So it was time for me to move on.
Yeah, very, very frustrating. And I just mentioned that because I just want to let parents know that it's an incredibly demanding profession. And I know my wife is always saying, it seems like we're in a battle. Parents come in with their guard up, ready to do battle with us, when I just want to sit down and have a conversation about how we can best help your child succeed. And she's not experiencing that desire to work as a team for the benefit of the child anymore.
Well, that goes back to the old adage, it takes a village to raise a child. But there's a lot more people involved in that village than just the child and the teacher. I mean, there's the parents, the community, the neighborhood. So there's a lot involved, and if everybody really needs to put their differences aside and work together.
Absolutely. Well, I know that as a theater teacher, you must have brought that energy and that creativity in creating the fabulous feats of Mr. B. Tell us a little bit about the book, please.
Well, as I was starting to retire, I sort of felt like that there's this kind of creative juice in me that I was still needed to let go of. And interestingly enough, Mr. B is very close to my own personality or my own character, because he is a drama teacher, and he goes into a classroom of kids that have never had drama before. So that was the first one that I won. That's the one that's coming out soon. And then it just kind of kept flowing. I actually have continued over a period of time, like a year and a half, and I've written 12 more. Yeah.
Wow. So this must feel just a natural for you. Just, were you surprised at how prolific you are with writing children's books?
Well, it's a great question, but the thing is that I kind of knew in the back of my mind that I had it in me, but I wasn't sure whether I could actually get it out on paper. But it just started to happen. I just sat down with pen and pad of paper and pencil, and it just started flowing out. And just as it was flowing out, it was I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like it. I like what I'm writing. I like what I'm reading. It kind of flowed, and it had. The character was quirky and fun, kind of, I think, similar to me. But as the series progressed, I started to come up with more and more different kinds of topics that I thought were relevant to education and to learning and to what's going on in schools today.
So what kind of adventures do we experience in the first installment of the Fabulous Feats of Mr. B?
And the first installment, the kids get a new teacher named Mr. B. His actually name is Mr. Bruce. They don't call him Mr. B yet. What a coincidence, huh? And then he's very quirky and funny, and they don't really know what to expect for him. But one of the things that he does in the first book is he sort of gets them to go on this relaxation journey where they close their eyes and they go through a series of breathing exercises. And then he takes them kind of on this journey, riding on a cloud to a different place. And they end up on top of this mountain where they can look down and see the school from above. Wow. And that's something that I've done for years in the classroom. I've done relaxation and breathing exercises and things like that. I think it's just really, really good for the kids.
Yeah. Wow. So in some ways, it kind of makes sense that you have all these stories because you kind of lived it for 35 years. And now you're just kind of pushing the play button and they're all coming out.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. To be honest with you, what I wanted to do is, and I think you'll appreciate this as well, is that there's a huge thing going on in South Florida and in Florida in particular of getting rid of the arts classrooms. Mm-hmm. So we're losing a lot of the arts. So we're losing, theater and orchestra, bands, chorus, because there's such a push for academics with reading, writing, and math, and to get ready for the Florida testing, that those classes are being pushed to the side. But I absolutely think that they're so important and so necessary because of creative and critical thinking. Mm-hmm. So that's the reason why I started to write the book, because I wanted people to realize, whether it's teachers or school districts or parents or whatever, that they can incorporate what I did for the last 35 years into their own lives. Mm-hmm. Everybody can take a moment and, relax and breathe and, go on kind of a mental journey when they close their eyes and go to some place that's like quiet and calm. So that's why I wrote the first book.
Wow. That's really fascinating. And I think it's a brilliant kind of strategy. You saw a problem, you see the classes going away, and I agree with you. I think music and theater classes are absolutely essential, and there's study that show just how valuable they are, and they do make a huge difference in terms of teaching, helping kids be creative and express themselves, and our kids need to be able to think and imagine and create and to express themselves if they're going to be successful, just as much as they need to be able to read and add and do the sciences. But so you've seen this the classes are disappearing. And I'm sure that you're supporting efforts to keep the classes there. But at the same time, you didn't kind of throw up your hands and go, well, they're gone, so there's nothing we can do about it, or just fight to keep them in there. You're actually giving parents a way to, give their kids the education, the creative outlets that they need in the homes. That's brilliant.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. But I think that you raised a very valid point, is the fact that it actually can be done in the home. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So like, for instance, in the first book, I do the relaxation thing. In the second book, I play a game called Opposite Day, where, everything is opposite. So up is down, and, sit is stand type of thing. So, but it's challenging the kids to think, and they could do that anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to be just in the classroom or whatever. It could be at home as well. And it just, again, reestablishes that whole kind of like creative thinking, critical thinking, switching the brain over to the other side kind of thing. And that's what I want the kids to be able to learn and grow with.
Yeah. And I just love that this is another way for just to extend that reading with your kids time together. I just love books that parents and kids can read over and over and over again. But even more than that, I love books that parents and kids can live together.
Well, I appreciate that. When I have two children. My son is 28, and my daughter's 26, and they're grown obviously now. But my wife and I were just voracious when it came to reading them stories and bedtime stories and stuff like that, because I thought it was like so important for them to kind of get it and see the pictures and grasp the words or whatever. And both of them were reading at the age of 3 mm-hmm. or 3.5 or 4. And I don't want to like pat myself on the back, say like, oh, I'm a great parent because my kid learned how to read so quickly. But I have to say that part of that, I think, is probably because we took the time to read to our children. Mm-hmm. And you certainly are a strong advocate of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Absolutely. And, both of my kids, it was funny because, my kids both had the same kindergarten teacher. And, when my daughter was halfway through, kindergarten, the teacher said to me, well, I knew she was going to be able to read when she came into class. And I said, what are you talking about? She wasn't able to read. She wasn't reading at home. She goes, your kids are reading before they got to my class. They just want to let you know because they loved hearing you read to them. But it is true, that whole, it really, we know from studies that reading with our kids helps kids read. But there's so much more. And, the bond that we begin with our kids, a conversation, that lifelong conversation that we start when we talk about the books and when we talk about the fabulous things that Mr. B does in his classroom. And I think you're doing these exercises together, doing that deep breathing that you introduced him to in the first book. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing for a family to do throughout their entire life. When I just think how I'm just imagining right now, because my mind, that creative side of my mind, it doesn't shut off sometimes. And, so I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, the dad or the mom come home from a stressful day at work and they drop the briefcase and they sit down and they're, and, the little 5 or 6 year old comes up and goes, let's sit down and do some deep breathing together and float on up. Dad? and look down on our problems and understand that we're bigger than them.
Right. You need some quiet time, Dad.
Yes, exactly. And he does. And it would just be really wonderful. Wow, this is so cool. So cool. So
good. I'm glad. I am glad that we're on the same page with that kind of stuff. But the other thing is, and Jed, is that I have to, we didn't grow up, and our kids, I don't think, grew up in the generation that was so technologically advanced. I mean, all the kids do, unfortunately, I think, is, come home and play Xbox or, whatever. And that's so independent one-on-one. And I don't even know if it actually requires skill, but I don't know if it actually requires thinking, or being creative. So, we have a lot that we're kind of battling against. When it comes to all these technological advancements. And that's why when I said to you at the beginning, this is my first podcast, I was like, I just, I'm a creature of habit, not a creature of change, so to speak. Yeah. And that's why, it's like I'm flattered that you invited me to do it, and I'm so happy to do it. And I hope it helps promote the book, but when I did the book, I actually did pencil and pad of paper. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the reasons I wanted you on is because I think that we forget, we do live in this time where there is all this technology, and there's absolutely a push to get kids involved in the STEM disciplines and, science and technology, engineering, mathematics. Those are really, really important. But I think that what we forget is that the advances in science, the advances in technology came because somebody sat down and said, what if? They saw a problem and they thought, how can we solve this? How can I use this technology to solve this problem? Or they saw that if I could manipulate these two things together, I can create this image. And so what can we do with that? How can we entertain people with that? So all the technology and the innovation is coming because somebody learned how to think creatively, think with that creative side of their mind. And that just doesn't happen. There are some people who are more creative than others and more naturally creative, but everybody has to learn and everybody has to practice being creative.
Well, I think that what you're saying makes a lot of sense. However, there are very similar things that are necessary, like if you're putting on a play or you're writing a book or you're doing something creative. Like, for instance, they're still teaching the skills that are necessary for life, that are needed for that are life skills that are needed, like prioritizing, time management, responsibility, self-work type of thing. And it's like, like if I'm directing a play and I know that it goes on in 3 months, and everything that's involved in that play, and casting it, having the people learn their lines, to blocking it, having the scenery, having the props and the costumes or whatever, so it's still very disciplined, it is a creative process, but it's still very disciplined. So, and that's the way I kind of looked at it, with the book, is that I didn't necessarily set a time limit for myself because I just wanted to see how it would come out.
Right.
So I just sat down and started writing. Right?
Wow.
And to be honest with you, just, which I'm sure you know much more than I do, it's like, I was so clueless when it came to publishing the book and, the launch and working with the publisher and just getting everything set up and all that, and the contracts and all that. That stuff, I never even entered my mind. I was like, what? Like, what is all that?
Well, it sounds like you were a quick study, and we're happy. We're happy that the Fabulous Feats of Mr. B has launched and is available, and that those other books are going to be in the pipeline and coming out. You've created a great website. Tell people where they can find out more about you and your books.
It's very easy. It's www.bruce, BRUCEP, like Paul, Weinberg, WEINBERG.com. And there's just a lot of information. There's like my own personal thoughts on my blogs and information about the first book. And then we actually just finished the second book.
Great.
So it's we completed all the details for it. We did the back and front cover, and it's and I sent it to the publisher. So it's possible that soon we'll have 2 books coming out.
Wonderful. Well, check it out, brucepweinberg.com. The name of the book is The Fabulous Feats of Mr. B. Our guest today has been Bruce Weinberg. Bruce, thank you so much for sharing this time with us today.
It was my pleasure. I really appreciate you having me on.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Leslie Wall. Leslie Wall, one of our favorite guests, is coming back to give us some great suggestions of books that we might want to read with our young teens. Really, really great. Get lots of great feedback about this segment in the show. Hey, if you are the author of a fantastic book, whether it's a picture book, a middle grade book, a YA title, it doesn't matter. We would love to have you as a guest on the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Being a guest, it's fun, it's easy, and it is absolutely free. Check it out. You get to tell the world all about your great book. And when I say the world, I don't mean like the world, like the entire, well, actually almost the entire world has access to the show. We've been downloaded on every single continent in the world, including Antarctica. And we have thousands of people listen to every episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. In addition to the time you're telling the audience about your book, we will promote that episode of the show with constant blasts out to our social media following. This is an opportunity for you to tell thousands and thousands of people about your great book, and it doesn't cost you a thing. You can learn more by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the contact button. Let us know all about your great book. We'll let you know the next steps. Hey, I want to thank Bruce Weinberg for being here today. And, of course, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading to that wonderful kid of yours. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.